We got the underappreciated cats out of the way, and I tell you who's overappreciated early in his tenure, and I saw this one coming. I'll tell you when I'm wrong, was Billy Napier at Florida. Florida losing players in the portal, and it didn't get much better on National Signing Day. I have a prediction. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Lane Kiffin will be your next head coach at Florida.
I think that's not crazy to think. That's not crazy to think at all.
He fits the mold of Steve Spurrier, and people want to harken back to the good old days, which they shouldn't, but they made a lot of bad hires anyway, so why wouldn't they make another one? And Kiffin might be a really good hire.
I think he'd be a heck of a hire for them.
I think he would too, as long as he stayed out of trouble. So that
those Florida girls, man.
But what did you think of Florida's signing class before we take a look at Georgia and Alabama, who are in their same old spot, and then we'll get A&M as well?
It was a disaster. Remember, Dave, let's talk about this for a minute. The reason they stuck with Billy Napier for as long as they did was because they were so high on the fact that Billy Napier was bringing in a top 5 class. I mean, that was the whole thing that they were selling us, was that Billy Napier's got a class. It doesn't matter they're struggling this year. He's going to have them being really good next year. And then the early signing period comes, and they've gone from the number 3 class to the number 16 class. They lost 7 blue chip commitments in the last 5 weeks. You know how crazy that is? They've lost 7 that flipped. And I believe just yesterday, so just naming them real quick: Xavier Filstein, Amaris Williams, Adarius Hayes, Jamonte Walker, Wendell Mack, Nazir Johnson, Isaiah Williams. And this is not, I'm just going to tell you guys this. Flips happen. This is not normal. When this happens, when this level happens, you're done as a coach. It's over. You don't get that back.
I have a pet peeve when somebody says, I could have done that. Like I could have turned my head and batted that ball down while a guy's running 4-4 down the field. No, you couldn't have. I mean, people say that in sports all the time. I could hit 90% from the free throw line. No, you probably couldn't have.
Or no, the best is I could break a 540. No, you can't.
Yeah, no, you can't. But seriously, dead serious. With a budget, Caleb and I could have gotten a top 15 class at Florida. It is that easy to recruit there. That's about bottom of the barrel. I remember one time, I think Derek Dooley had one that was 25, and people said it was still a top 25 class. Given Tennessee's facilities, top 25, bottom of the barrel. That's the floor. You should absolutely be better than that. There is no excuse for where Florida is standing other than they hired the wrong coach. And Tennessee fans should be excited about that, because he is laying a foundation of mediocrity that will play itself out, not just in 2024, but 25, 26. That program is going to need a major overhaul, and they've still got another year with him unless they do something crazy like fire him right now.
I mean, they should maybe consider it. And here's the crazy part, though, and I'm going to bring this up.
I actually thought that last week before National Signing Day. I thought they should go ahead and make a move, get ahead of everybody, like we saw A&M do. Go hire your coach and try to salvage a National Signing Day, the early one. That was my thought.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you. And here's the crazy part. So we're going to talk about this later in the show, but guys, it's no longer Power 5. There used to be 2 levels of Division I, Power 5, Group of 5. Now it's Power 2, SEC and Big Ten, and then the other Power 5 schools that aren't in the SEC or Big Ten. Well, Dave, Florida is the only school that's in the SEC or the Big Ten. They should have a distinct power advantage over Florida State and Miami immediately, right? Just because of that. They should have their pick of the litter of Florida. One of the things that always held Florida back in recruiting, to give them a break, was you have to compete with 2 other Power 5 schools. You don't have to compete with them anymore. You're the top dog because you're in the SEC, and the other 2 are stuck in the ACC. Well, guess what? Miami, with arguably the stupidest head coach in football right now, just secured the number 3 ranked recruiting class. Is there any excuse right now for Miami to have the 3rd ranked class and Florida to have the 16th ranked class?
No. Now, I do like what Travis said. We got a call out, and Travis calls us out. He said, y'all said the same stuff on Drinkwitz last year. We did. I think that Drinkwitz, though, is a better X's and O's coach. I like to make fun of him because I think he's a goofball. But as far as recruiting, he has a greater challenge at Missouri than Billy Napier or any Florida coach would ever have. So I think Drinkwitz is a better overall coach. I know I make fun of him a lot. Where did Missouri fall in the standings? I'm trying to find them. They're at 22. So I think Drinkwitz is a coach that can get more out of less. I think Billy Napier's bringing in less, and have we seen him get more out of what he's had? I haven't.
No, Billy Napier's a recruiter, and he hasn't brought in good recruiting classes. So that I mean, look, it is what it is, and so for him to lose out because of the different layers, Florida right now. Dave, I was ready to put Florida on the same level of LSU, Ohio State, and Georgia in terms of best jobs in America. I was ready to put Florida on that level because I don't think they have legitimate competition for talent in the state right now. They shouldn't. Miami and Florida State shouldn't have better classes than Florida does right now. That's a travesty if you're Florida. It's the best job in the state. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
because they're in the SEC.
I would have argued Florida State because I would have said they could easily win the ACC and make the college football playoff, but they didn't. So yes, being in the ACC is like being in a Group of 5 school, right? You have to compete. Like the SEC is going to get the pick of the litter if you're Florida. No, absolutely. All right. So your thoughts on Alabama and Georgia? No great surprise. I don't think that they had a fantastic class again.
Georgia, everybody freaked out about them in the transfer portal, and they lost a 5-star quarterback committing to Nebraska, still had the number 1 class. Kirby Smart's got a machine there. Alabama's got the number 2 class, but we saw this in the SEC title game. I think something is very clear, Dave, right now, which is that Georgia is, all things being equal, a better job than Alabama. But in-game strategy, Nick Saban's a better coach than Kirby Smart. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I think so too. So I don't think Nick Saban cares as much about the number 1 class anymore. He doesn't care about losing out to Georgia anymore. He just knows that if he can stay competitive with Georgia, he'll outcoach. I mean, they beat Georgia because Nick Saban outcoached circles around Mike Bobo. And Nick Saban's a better offensive coordinator than Mike Bobo is. And that's funny to say because offense is Mike Bobo's calling card.
That sounds insane, but you might well be right.
Auburn had the number 7 ranked class, but Hugh Freeze said the most shamelessly hypocritical thing I have ever heard a coach say. The only thing that comes close to what I'm about to tell you was when Urban Meyer went on Bill O'Reilly's show and said it would be hard for him to have a player of Jameis Winston's character and accept that on his football team. Urban Meyer actually said that one time, but Hugh Freeze is second to Urban Meyer now in shameless hypocrites for what he said on signing day yesterday. He was asked about players flipping and things like that, and he said, quote, I kid you not, quote, "There are some schools in this conference that believe in last night efforts." Well, Hugh Freeze knows something about last night efforts. But then on top of that, he said there were some late night pushes. We won. There were some late night pushes. We won, held on, won one, lost one. People in this conference are good at what they do. And then last quote, "I don't always like what is done," says the snake who tricked Ole Miss recruits to staying in his recruiting class when he knew they were about to go on probation because at the time, the transfer portal, they couldn't transfer. Says the liar who told Ole Miss recruits, "We're not in trouble. Don't worry. We're not going to go on probation." This was all under the previous staff under Houston Nutt, and then dropped a bunch of fake reports trying to throw Houston Nutt under the bus for stuff he was doing that got Ole Miss kids locked into a school that was going on probation. That's what this guy just said. Okay? Dave, how shamelessly hypocritical is that?
Little Penix Energy says Hugh Freeze knows about late night pushes as well. That's pretty good line. I'll give you that.
He's just the shamelessness. I can't get over that. He's an awful person as it is, and he just says that he has a problem with the way things are done and implies that he recruits with integrity.
But nothing says integrity like Hugh Freeze. I'll give you that. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys, play to win. Banks and Jones, why Banks and Jones, other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks and Jones, when it comes to personal injury and criminal defense, it should be your attorney of choice, and they represent the show. I want to tell you, though, you need to get on board with Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Give that a try. Use the promo code HAT to receive some free swag on your cider order. Available most anywhere in the U.S., but if you use that promo code HAT, you'll get some free swag. That's tncidercompany.com, right below, tncidercompany.com. And I think we need a hooker cider. And we need a hooker cider eventually. All right, A&M, your thoughts on A&M?
Yeah, so other A&M signing class. This is actually big for Tennessee because Texas A&M failed to sign 5-star defensive lineman Dominick McKinley, and he's actually visiting. So Cameron Coleman flipped to Auburn, by the way, yesterday. Hugh Freeze didn't have any problem with that. Flipped from A&M to Auburn, so he didn't mind for that late night push. But
sometimes you got to flip in the middle of those late night pushes. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so Dominick McKinley, a 5-star defensive lineman, did not sign with A&M. I don't think this is a sign of A&M imploding to have a first-year head coach. You're going to have some flips and losses. But I do think this specific player is a good sign for Tennessee because he's visiting Tennessee on January the 20th. So, guys, Tennessee, we talked about Jordan Seaton earlier. I don't think he's not going to Tennessee. Sorry, I told you guys Boo Carter was staying. I'm telling you guys right now, Jordan Seaton is going to flip from Colorado, but he's not flipping to Tennessee. That's not happening. But I will tell you that
I don't know. This feels like legitimately. I'm not saying he is or isn't. This feels like legitimately he's not sure. It feels like Jansen Jackson, who waited till the day after signing day before murdering someone. But it feels like that, Caleb. It feels like the kid's really unsure. So I don't know that he knows. And if he doesn't know, then I don't know.
I think he's genuine about the fact, though, that he wants to play for a black head coach, which is fine. That I'm not judging that at all, but that would be where Mike Locksley comes into play. But Dominick McKinley is visiting the Tennessee-Alabama game in basketball January the 20th. It is true he is looking at Texas, but this could be a good pickup for Tennessee. Somebody you might rather have than Walter Nolan, honestly. So watch out for Dominick McKinley. Tennessee could get him. If they got Seaton and McKinley, Dave, what does that do to their class? All of a sudden, it's a top 8 class.
Okay, so everybody on the message board right now, you know I love you, and you know you've built this into something special. But I'm gonna call you out on one thing. Saying you don't want Walter Nolan because he might not come to Tennessee, or saying you don't want Jordan Seaton because he might not come, it's just not true. If we had breaking news of Seaton or Nolan coming to Tennessee, each and every one of you, you would absolutely love it. You would absolutely love it.
That's how signing day works, Dave. If a player didn't commit to my school, I never wanted him. But if he committed to my school, you all wanted him. I saw that when we did the Boo Carter lap the other day. Every Colorado fan who kept saying he was going to flip was going to be like, well, we didn't really need Boo. We got this guy or this guy.
It's too small. It's too small. He's not that good. He switched high schools. Don't want him.
Happen.
Yeah.
By the way, for the record,
if Tennessee got Nolan and Seaton, which I'm not saying they're going to, and they may be head cases. You might be exactly right. But, I mean, they'd be a top 10 class all of a sudden.
Exactly. Oh, my. This is as old as I remember.
All fan for life is saying, I'm telling you, I don't want Seaton. I think he's locker room trouble. Okay, I will believe you. But I think 99% of the people that say that are just saying it because he's not coming to Tennessee.
Oh, by the way, here's the proof of that. How many Vol fans, Dave, were when they thought Boo Carter was flipping, were like, well, we don't want Boo Carter. He's obviously some trouble. And how many of them were then excited that they kept Boo Carter? It was a 180. And
I thought Boo Carter was a head case at one point. I had somebody close to his recruitment tell me that it was he might not take to college coaching really well. And this was recently. But everything I've heard since then, this was last week. So we heard from Jacob Warren. If you haven't listened to the Vol Report, he's like, that Boo guy stands out. So Smoky Mountain Red, I think, kind of sums it up. And this is National Signing Day in general. Yes, I would take him, but he still seems like an issue with how he is handling his recruitment. That says a lot about a player, in my opinion. I totally agree. I was the first to find Jalen Ramsey. Have I told you this? When I was working for ESPN. And when I interviewed Jalen Ramsey, he said, you want to interview me? ESPN wants to interview me? He got into the recruiting process, and he was out of Brentwood, and we all know that he turned in one of the best cornerbacks of the past 10 years or so. And he got in the recruiting process, got caught up in that, got the big head, and then suddenly he was difficult to deal with. But would you turn him down?
No. So the question to you on this, we're blaming the kids for how they handle recruitment. What about self-reflection for how much, and I'm a hypocrite. I say this, I'm still going to cover it and talk about it because it's such a big deal. What about self-reflection on how interested we as adults are in life decisions 16 and 17-year-olds make? How are you going to blame the 16 and 17-year-old and not yourself for being so obsessed with them? Isn't that the real?
I think it's important, but I think that at 16 or 17, you're old enough and you should be mature enough not to play it as a game. I'd like to write the recruiting, how to get your kid recruited the right way for dummies. And that is whether it's a 247 or whether it is rivals or whatever, you deal with one person. You don't take a million different calls from a million different people. You shouldn't have to, but you're just legit and honest with people. I think that's the way you do it.